G'day folks, it's Laura here, and today I'm going to do a flip cup pour. This time my colours include yellow deep, cadmium orange hue, napthol crimson, brilliant violet, iridescent blue-green and titanium white. Now all of these are from Jo Sonja except for these two Pebeo paints. In this pour I'm going to focus on the pale colours a little bit more. So I'll use more of the yellow, more of the light or iridescent blue, and less of the darker colours, the three in the centre here. So I'm going to use my standard pouring medium. This is a new bottle made up fresh. I'll link to a video on how to make this if you're interested. Now in mixing these paints up with the pouring medium, I've got two Pebeo paints in here. They're very highly viscous, as you can probably see. I'm only going to use a tiny amount of this to begin with, mix those up well, and then add a bit more pouring medium. Also, for the colours that I'm using less of, I'm going to use less pouring medium. Now these Pebeo paints are still very thick, even though I've now mixed them with pouring medium. So I'm going to actually add a little bit of water. I'm going to add less water to this orange one, because first of all the cup is less full. I used less paint overall, but this one was slightly less viscous, whereas the iridescent blue-green was a more viscous paint and I used more of it. So I'm just keeping things a bit proportional in terms of how I'm adding the different components. So added the water to try and bring the viscosity down to match the other paints. That's really good now. When you do add water to these thicker paints, it can be quite difficult to actually mix them up. You do have to mix them for quite a while for that water to integrate completely. And mixing them gently, because otherwise the water, being so much less viscous, is just going to flip straight out of the cup. So that's starting to pick up now. They're getting a bit more integrated, but I still need to mix them a bit more. Okay, and that's much better as well. So it's time to layer the cup now. And I'm going to use my standard cell activator for this. So I'll link to a video on how to make this if you're interested. I'm going to start by layering a bit of the cell activator on the sides and the bottom of the cup. Now with this colour lineup, I have very little of these middle two paints and quite a lot of these others. So I will need to keep that in mind as I'm using them. The other thing is that I do actually have some complementary colours in here. I've got the blue and the orange, as well as the purple and the yellow. And so I'm going to need to be a little bit careful not to let these kind of complements go next to each other. I might start actually with a little bit of the red colour. Such a beautiful bright colour. Now with the iridescent blue-green, because its pigment colour is largely composed of mica flakes, that don't have a lot of their own colour in them. The paint itself does tend to be a bit translucent, which can be a bit of a problem in these kinds of acrylic pours. So what I've done here is I've isolated this colour with some white on either side when I'm layering it, just to ensure that it doesn't completely get lost. I might just use some white for some interest in the middle there. A bit more orange on the other side. I like using opaque white in my pours to provide some variation in the lightness of the different colours. I find that it creates some subtlety in the way the pour turns out. Now I've deliberately placed this yellow and the blue next to each other in the hopes that I might actually get some green mixes coming out. Now I'm not 100% sure how nice those greens will be, because admittedly I'm using a yellow that was more on the orange end of the spectrum. So it's a warmer yellow rather than a cooler yellow. So it might turn a little bit muddy, but I guess we'll find out. So again, today I'm using an old canvas that I've scraped down while it was still wet, because I didn't like the result. But just to let you know about this canvas, I did prepare it originally by adding painter's tape, as well as these giant push pins. So it's time to flip the cup now. Look at those beautiful cells developing. I'm going to unfortunately destroy them all when I pull the cup up, but they're quite fun to watch. Okay, here we go. Wow, very interesting. I've got a very bright orange stripe coming through, emerging in the center there. I'll just get the rest of the paint out of the cup, spread it around the edges and the corners. Just going to use my heat gun to pop any bubbles. Rightio, my goodness, this one's a little bit of a rainbow happening, isn't it? So the paint's mostly on the left-hand side. I do need to pull it down. I'm really fascinated with this very bright orange stripe, and I'm actually just at the moment loving that juxtaposition between those complementary colours. So the orange and that blue, I think that's really popping at the moment. I'm not really getting the purple against the yellow so much. There's a little tiny bit, I'll probably lose that. But the orange and the blue, that's amazing. So let's see if we can try and keep that. So I don't want to lose it off the edge. Don't want to distort those cells too much, but I did need to stretch that paint out. Okay, now we've definitely got that orange stripe right through that center there. Okay, I might spin this one now. Right, we're going quite well, but we're not actually off the top edge yet. So I'm just going to do a little bit of modification here by adding some paint to that edge just to soften it again. Just to help that paint slide a little bit better over that edge. It can just be a little bit difficult for the paint to move when there's a bit too much friction. I'll help it along by just moving it down a little bit. But we've done very well in terms of getting close to the edges, which is excellent. So I might spin that one again. Wow, so I think I'm off all of the edges now. I might come back in with the heat gun before I go any further, just to absolutely make sure I've gotten rid of all of those bubbles. Now I'm just going to cover those corners with some of the spare paint that's dripping off, because the corners are always a little bit difficult. They never quite get fully covered just by spinning. And just checking all of those edges, and yes, I think we did manage to get off all of the edges. So I'm just pulling the paint off from underneath now. Wow, this piece is absolutely magnificent. So we've managed to retain that amazing bright orange against the bright blue, which is beautiful and a bit unexpected, to be honest, because that blue color is from the iridescent blue-green from Pebeo, and so it generally is quite translucent. So I think the reason why we've still got it sticking around here is because I did do that kind of buffer layer of white on either side of the blue. So that's helping it to actually maintain its color and independence, which is excellent. So we've got the beautiful lacing here with the orange and the blue. We've got a little rainbow happening down here, which I'm absolutely loving, and it's incredibly bright. We have a lot of very subtle and complex colors happening in here, possibly a bit of muddiness happening. So when you get too many of these layers and there are a few different complementary colors in there, you do tend to get some muddy mixing. But if you do look very closely in these sections, you can see that differentiation of the underlying layers and the colors. So there is some kind of nuance to that section. And then up here, we've just got a little party happening. It's just beautiful with some of these very large cells from the lacing, from the cell activator, and a little bit of mixing between the purple and the red and the yellow. So I think this is a really amazing piece. It's very bright. I was obviously in the mood for something very bright and rainbow colored. Who knows whether I'll be able to use it for a wildlife painting, but we'll see whether that suits my mood at some point. But I think that's done for now. So thanks very much everyone for watching. Please let me know what you think in the comments.